The Maple Leafs pick up 4 points on the weekend with back-to-back wins against Calgary and Vancouver. We'll break down those games, and trade chatter is coming heavy and strong after the Calgary game with a guy named Nikita Zadorov. Could the Leafs be interested there? We'll get into all that and more on today's edition of the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's show is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Oh, what's going on, Dave? How's your weekend?
Busy, really busy weekend, actually.
What'd you get up to?
Well, Leaf game, then I had the
Argos.
playoffs. Oh, I thought I was done seeing Toronto teams implode in the playoffs with the Leafs.
Tough. I didn't watch the game, but I heard that it was just the worst time possible for Chad Kelly to be his worst.
Yeah, I've never seen Chad Kelly. I've never seen the team play so bad, but Chad Kelly especially. 5 turnovers just from him alone.
That's tough, man. Tough. It looked like a team that could repeat, go back to back, but unfortunately not. There should be a Locked On Argo show. There should be a Locked On CFL podcast. But you could check out Dave's work on sportsnet.ca to read about the Toronto Argonauts if you are interested. I was at the Toronto Card Show all weekend, and dude, I am pooped. These conventions are wild, and I this is the first year I did the entire thing from Thursday all the way through until Sunday, and I am wiped. I woke up with a migraine this morning. My feet are killing me, my knees, my back. It's just 4 days of just walking around and this is a 200 square foot building. You're just walking around with a 30-pound backpack full of cards on your back, and it's 12 hours. No, you don't really eat or drink a whole lot because I refuse to pay $8 for a water bottle at those places. It was a tough weekend, but I got some good scores. I did get some good scores that I'll be writing about in the hockey news. But I'll show you guys probably my best one. Hold on, I gotta flip this down. But this was the coolest pickup that I got on the weekend. Bam.
Ooh.
Wayne Gretzky, the great one. It is a two-color patch. You can see game use patches right there. Jersey swatches with the autograph, and then it's numbered 9/9. So you can see it's basically says number 99 on it. So I thought that was pretty sick. That was my biggest and best pickup. You wouldn't believe, to get back into the Leafs, to this is how we're going to connect things, Dave. You wouldn't believe the prices of William Nylander on Thursday and then the prices of Nylander on Sunday, how much they grew. It was insane because this guy was a man on a mission this weekend. He was unbelievable in that game against Calgary and then just continued to make great plays against the Vancouver Canucks. He was outstanding all weekend long. So the Leafs collecting, 4 points on the weekend. They got a shootout win over Calgary and a 5-2 win over the Vancouver Canucks. They're now 8-5-2, 18 points on the year, sitting top 10 in the league once again. How'd you feel about how the Leafs came out this weekend, Dave?
Oh, I thought the Friday game going pretty well until they decided to blow the 4-1 lead, which I wasn't too thrilled with.
Yeah.
But I like the way they played more to their game. The last 2 games, you saw more of what the Leafs are supposed to be, right, than what we saw prior to this. I think the big one, obviously, with Saturday's game, the one against the Canucks that I really liked the most was you saw what an adequate fourth line could look like.
Yes. It's funny, isn't it? You take Ryan Reeves off that line, and what do? scored a couple goals, looked the best they've looked all year. I wonder if he's been the problem the whole time.
It's also nice to give Bobby McMahon a little bit of work too. Deserving.
Yeah. I thought Bobby McMahon should have been on this team. Now he
Yes.
did get hurt, so he missed a lot of training camp, but I wonder if a lot of him going down to the Marlies was to get him, up to game speed, considering I think he only got into one maybe preseason game, maybe
I
two.
think the final preseason game was the one he got. That was it.
Yeah, yeah. So, the injury kind of cost him, but obviously, Bobby McMahon comes up and it was fine. He looked like an NHLer. I think he is an NHLer. He's a good fourth line guy. He's a big body who can skate, and he's got speed, and he's got a motor on him. It's exactly what you want on the fourth line.
Yeah.
So, and I was looking too. Not a single offensive zone face-off for those guys. All of their face-offs were either in the defensive zone or was in the neutral zone. So no O-zone starts. Yet they still had a positive expected goal rating and outscored Vancouver 2-0. First, goals of the fourth line basically all season. So it was good to see that. But why don't we go through the 3 stars of the weekend and kind of try and break down these games. So who's your third star of the weekend, Dave?
I'm gonna go with Giordano and Max Domi. The
Mm.
two guys that stuck up for their players when Ryan Reeves wasn't in the lineup. Apparently, you can't stick up for yourselves without needing Ryan Reeves around. Interesting to see.
Yeah, it is good to see. I also had I had Domi as my third, but I guess you could throw them both in there for doing what they did. Domi had 3 points on the weekend too, a couple nice setups. So he was my third star. But I think there's a conversation to be had there about with Ryan Reeves. Maybe like when he's in the lineup, maybe people assume, okay, well, will probably just he'll do the dirty work, right? We don't have to. So no one actually drops the gloves and responds to anything because they assume, okay, that's Reeves' job. That's what he's here for. But when he's not in the lineup, they got to kind of stick up for themselves. And in a way, I wonder if that almost like invigorated the group, like to see Gio go and fight, sticking up for his guy, right? To see Max Domi after who took the hit there? Robertson takes a big hit. Domi says, I don't think so. You're not hitting my kid. Goes and he, starts like, I just, there's something different about when Reeves is out of the lineup and you need these other guys to step up. And I mean, I know that I've been very much been in this team doesn't need Ryan Reeves camp, but I think I was vindicated based on what we saw this weekend. Like, to be quite honest with you, both on ice with just the overall general play, and the team is maybe even more physical all around because they're like, well, if I don't do it, no one else will. So they have to do it collectively as a committee.
Yeah, you saw that. It's you don't always have to fight too, right? Like Giordano, people like, oh, Giordano, like it's his choice to fight, but just the pushback, because and it was funny to also see people complain about them fighting after a clean hit, and I'm like, well, you got mad when they wouldn't stick up for each other. The clean or not, you're gonna still stick up for your guys. Like, you don't want to give the Canucks or any other team the idea that they can just blow up players without any response. So just want to remind people about that one too. Yeah, I know you get it from the whole it's team toughness, right? Team toughness is not one person doing it all. It's the collective group sticking up for each other, right? And that's why they brought in Domi. That's why they brought in Bertuzzi. That's why, Reeves. But that's why they brought in multiple players to do it. I feel like, yeah, as you're saying, maybe the sentiment was Ryan Reeves is supposed to handle a lot of this for us, do the heavy lifting. Yeah, but the whole team, you can't just say one guy's going to do it and then give the opponent the idea that the rest of the team is just not going to handle their business because they feel like one player is going to do it.
But don't you feel like that's kind of how it's been? Like someone takes a big hit and it's like, all right, we're gonna wait for Ryan Reeves to do something about it. But then that opportunity never comes, right? Like Marchand, when they talked about how why didn't Reeves get a chance to go against Marchand? The excuse was, well, the way that the lineup went, they never got on the ice at the same time, so Reeves couldn't do anything. We'll look at literally the 17 other guys who were on the ice at the same time. None of them could have done anything. It's not like Brad Marchand's a freakazoid. Like Domi could have easily dropped the mitts with Brad Marchand. Like I would have been a worthy opponent, I would think. You know what I mean? So I'll be curious to see what they end up doing now with Reeves. Obviously, like he sat the whole third period basically in Calgary, and then he sits in this game up in the press box in Vancouver. I will be curious to see how they go about, what they do with Ryan Reeves. They're off to Sweden, so they're going to be off all week. By the way, they're out to Sweden now, and Reeves is clearly going to join them and be with the team. But how much he actually plays, is he going to get into one of these games? I guess that remains to be seen. We'll see what things look like once they get over to Sweden, and we see some of the practice lines kind of come out once they get there. Second star and first star, we will tell you guys about on the other side. But first, Dave, why don't you tell the good folks listening to the show about one of our show sponsors?
Yes, today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guarantee Fit only available to U.S. customers.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. It's Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. We're a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast. If it's your first time tuning in, thank you for giving us a shot. Hopefully you enjoy the show. We do put out new content each weekday, Monday through Friday. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You could also view us on YouTube as well, and you'll get new content daily. It's all Leafs all the time. And I do want to give a special shout out, Dave, because I did run into a couple of fans of the show while I was at the expo this weekend, one of which I did say that I would give him a shout out. He sent us, we took a pic together, and then he tagged me in it. So Mike Dotto, I believe. Mike Dotto said it was awesome meeting us, and said, keep killing it to the Locked On Leafs guys. So appreciate it. He said he'd be listening on Monday. So there you go. There's the shout out. Love when fans of the show run into me in public and tell me how good of a job we're doing. So I really appreciate when that
Check
happens.
is in the mail, right, Mike? Check is in the mail?
Checks in the mail. Yeah. Checks in the mail. If you ever see Dave and I in public, like I guess I won't speak for Dave, but he's a good guy. So I know he's the same thing. Tell us, stop us, talk to us. We always love to hear, from the listeners, especially the loyal ones, the everydayers, like Mike and many, many others. A few others came up to me as well throughout the weekend. So never be shy. We'll always talk. We don't bite. Right, Dave?
As long as you don't come at me from behind. I get a little jumpy.
You just made things weird. You just made things weird, Dave. You had to take a good thing.
Hey, I got spooked the other day. Somebody I know, and I knew this person, just came up from behind, and I jumped.
He approached you from the rear?
Well, not in that context, no. But it's still like when you're not expecting it. But I digress. I'm sure that whoever I've had a couple of people reach. I say, "You Dave from Locked On Leafs." So it's great. It's warms my heart to get that recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue breaking down the weekend. Leafs won both games, their first back-to-back of the weekend, and they get a perfect 4 points. 5-2 win over the Canucks on Saturday, and then prior to that, a 5-4? Yeah, 5-4 shootout win against Calgary on Friday evening. We gave the third star to the two fighters, I guess, from Saturday's game, and Max Domi and Mark Giordano. Who gets the second star of the weekend, Dave?
Kind of now I'm going with the double cheat here, because not only am I picking a line, but I'm actually giving someone third and second star. I'm giving the third line my second star. So Max Domi actually gets on twice here. But Domi deserves his own shout out for the fight. I felt that was important. That third line has been like it's been a game changer in a lot of ways, because we talked about how not only did the third line need to produce offensively, which Nick Robertson, how you doing, guys? Just remind people that he can score goals, but those defensive issues that we thought they were going to have, I guess Cal Yarncroke is really doing a lot of good work there. But I just think that the whole unit is playing to their strengths, their speed, being able to cycle the puck in the offensive zone. I really like this third line. It's unfortunate that because of all the movement to start the year, that Robertson wasn't able to be here and this wasn't able to be a line right off the hop. But I think it's changed in a big way for this Leafs team since they've come together.
Yeah, I agree, and they found some chemistry, right? Like right from the get go. Yarncroc had a couple of goals the first night that they were put together, and now you've seen Robertson, put a couple into the back of the net as well. And Domi, he's kind of been a good facilitator from the middle of the ice there, which I guess is a good revelation for the Maple Leafs to have. But you look at that game on Friday against the Flames, and on the ice at 5-on-5 for 9 minutes and 28 seconds together. They outshot Calgary 7-0, outscored them 1-0, and had an expected goals rate of 98.54. So they were all over the Flames. That line was, and imposing their will in a way, and also was able to score off of it. So absolutely, that third line came through for sure. I want to give a shout out to Ilya Samsonov. Obviously just played the one night, but he was great against the Canucks, and we weren't sure. What are we going to see out of Samsonov? You know what I mean? Like it's become very Jekyll and Hyde with him, especially on home ice now. There's been a lot of struggles. That was the first game all year where the Leafs held an opponent to under 4 goals in a game on home ice. That's insane. But Samsonov was able to do it. 31 of 33 saves. He was perfect at 5-on-5. The 2 goals he scored were on the power play. And were pretty nice shots. There were some screens in front that Sammy may not have even seen the goals there, but he had a 2.31 goal saved above expected in that game as well. I thought that he was real solid and gave the Leafs their best goaltending at home all season long, and that's good to see. He'll have a week off now to kind of rest and recover, and hopefully he can continue to build off of this performance, and we can get back to seeing the Sammy we saw a year ago.
Yeah, I think again you need both goalies to get going here, and that's a game. And we were talking about they're throwing them to the wolves against one of the top teams in the league offensively, right?
On the second night of a back-to-back.
Exactly. Well, fortunately, that back-to-back was at home. I guess that helped a little bit, but playing on both nights is never easy. I do think that what we saw to Samsonov was those extra chances weren't there, right? He was swallowing up pucks pretty well. He was not going all over the place. He was very much in his position when he needed to be, right? We didn't see Samsonov look out of sorts like we had in other games where he's kind of swimming around, trying to get side to side, trying to get in position, overplaying things and things like that. So we saw a more calm Samsonov than that. And that's what he needs to be, right? They got to find a way to just calm things down, both physically and mentally. So I do think that was a very important one for him, just to get the confidence, right?
Yeah.
Like getting the win's important, but I think getting his confidence and him knowing that I can make those saves to keep this team in the game. And they were losing right after the first period. He locked things down for them to allow them to have that comeback and really take over the game. So give him a lot of credit for that.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And at least they scored 4 unanswered to end the game.
Yeah.
So, they ended up, coming back down 2-1 and roared all the way back. Sammy made some big stops in along the way to give his team a chance to get back into it and then pull away. And that's what they're able to do. And what I liked about that win too, which I don't think we mentioned in the first segment there, all 5 goals came at 5-on-5.
Yeah.
Right? Like this team has been very reliant on their power play this year. When the power play is not cooking, they're not getting a whole lot of offense. If Matthews isn't getting on the board, or if Nylander isn't getting on the board, they're really getting nothing out of anyone. But the other night they were able to do that, right? You get a couple of goals on the fourth line, you get a goal for Robertson, you get a goal for here, and Willie obviously, scores a really nice goal with patience there. But all 5 goals coming at 5-on-5. So that was also really good to see, that even strength offense started to come to light. I guess a really good Vancouver team, like they're third in the NHL. Like that's not a bad team to beat. Scoring 5 goals on Thatcher Demko, who came into the game with like a 186 goals against. It's impressive stuff, So I think the Leafs deserve a lot of credit for a gutsy win like that. First star of the weekend, Dave.
Gonna give it to the guy that keeps putting up points, cannot be stopped. And you talked about his hockey card value going up. That contract demand might be going up with each and every game. William Nylander just looked like you think he's looked so good, and then he just has another good game, and he's all over the place, and it's great. Like I know people are probably worried about the contract. Don't be worried about the contract. Just hope that Nylander can continue this, because he third, like top 3 in scoring right now in the NHL right now, or up there?
Like overall points. I always got 10 goals on the year, so that'd be up there in terms of overall points.
He was third. He is now down to 5th, 6th.
What a bum. Yeah, 6th in scoring, 22 points on the year. He's
in 15 games.
Sammy Reinhart has 21 points.
He had 10 points this week, Reinhart.
He was given first star honors, by the way. Willie got third star of the week in the NHL. So Willie did get some recognition for the week that he is having. And he did have a strong weekend, and he was obviously my first star as well. You look at a guy, 3 goals and 2 of them, like in each game too. Like the patience on that 1 goal in Vancouver, just to kind of wait out Demko, skate around him, and kind of tuck it in. I think it went off the defenseman, but still just went around and tucked it in, right? Like that was just a great goal. And then the one in Calgary too, just like knocks your socks off. He made a really nice pass to Tavares too on Tavares' goal.
Yeah.
So, this guy's making plays. And I think, was it after the Calgary game? I want to say I was driving home and I was listening to the post-game show, and Sheldon Keefe was, everyone's saying, yeah, Nylander is playing great. He was outstanding, making plays, scoring goals. He's like, yeah, that's all great. But he went out of his way to say tonight was the best he played defensively. He thought like that was a night where those guys really, really committed to playing a 200-foot game, and Willie in particular. If you go back to that game, it's unbelievable. The game against Calgary, 12 minutes and 49 seconds of ice time for that second line. Their Corsi percentage was 76.92% in their favor. They outshot Calgary 9-1. They scored a goal, then 80% expected goals in that game as well. And the scoring chances were 10-2, 6 of which being of the high danger variety. And that's just on 50% ozone start. So they're really transitioning the puck from the defensive end to the offensive end quite easily. And I think it's also safe to say that Tyler Bertuzzi is definitely starting to find a home there on that second line. And it looks like the 3 lines are really starting to mold and form here, with Nyes up on the top. Got that second line cooking. You already talked about the third line, how well they played this weekend. Just got to figure out that fourth line in the right combination. And whether or not it has Reeves on it remains to be seen. But it does seem like things are starting to come into place here for Toronto with these new players. And it makes sense. This is why people always say to wait until American Thanksgiving, especially if you had a lot of turnover, because it takes a little bit of tinkering to figure out what works best. And I think we're finally starting to see some chemistry grow between these players.
Yeah, right. It does always take time when you have a lot of new players. That's why I wasn't like sounding the alarms. I know some people were, but like look at what Max Domi had said a week ago.
Yeah.
Like if you're panicking after 10 games, then like you shouldn't, like, especially if you're a player, like you shouldn't be playing in the NHL, right? Like players have their struggles, players have their slumps, especially when guys are in new situations or dealing with a new environment. And I think now you've got everything almost pretty much solidified. Even this fourth line, if they keep this fourth line going for a little bit, sorry, Ryan Reeves, you're gonna get a nice free trip to Sweden. spend some time, spend some time eating some, spend some time in the press box, because I don't see any reason why you switch the lineup as is. I know at practice right now, Klingberg was absent.
Yeah, same with camp. I don't know if that was
Probably
what that was.
scheduled.
Also, interesting how Klingberg was injured on Friday, didn't play, and then was good to go on Saturday, though. Good to go. Played all right, actually. Should we, played well? Can we say that?
I think. Well, they said that
Fine,
he was.
decently.
I think like the shot, the high, like the scoring chances were 5-0 with him on the ice, so he was in a plus situation for like the first time as a Leaf. I think the important one here too, with you were asking for this for the longest time, but Jake McCabe playing on the right side.
Yes.
Right? Him and Giordano were the pairing, and you know what? Protecting John Klingberg meant putting him on the third pairing with William Lagesson.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you gotta do what you gotta do, Yeah,
I
scoring
will
chances.
say, I'm going to add to the Klingberg injury stuff because we're getting some stuff coming in from reporters from practice. Sheldon
Yeah.
Keefe asked if he can share the nature of John Klingberg's injury. Of course, he says no. Klingberg expected to practice this week in Stockholm, but may not practice in Toronto. I think they're spending the first few days in Toronto. They're going to travel probably like Wednesday or something.
I think tomorrow, I want to say they
or
might
even
be
after
traveling.
practice tomorrow. They might do like a skate and then head over. I think Ottawa's already there, if I'm not mistaken. Like this is the Leafs are not the only team playing in Sweden this week.
No, there's 4 of them out there. For whatever reason, Toronto and Ottawa do not play, but Detroit, Toronto,
Minnesota.
Ottawa, Minnesota are the 4 teams that are over there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So the Klingberg, it was interesting that, as you said, all of a sudden he's in, then he's out, then he's in. Now there's stuff popping up, so it's interesting. I don't know how. Again, we have no idea. I haven't noticed anything. Like, there's nothing I can point to say, yeah, he looks a little.
I mean, he I don't know.
He was banged up in training camp. We know that he was dealing with something in training camp.
Yeah. Could there be something? Maybe, but ultimately, I think it was like
This is the protection plan that Sheldon Keefe was talking about.
yeah, let's give you a night up in the press box, and we'll just say that you're injured, and we'll call it that. 75% of his starts in that game against Vancouver were in the offensive zone, so that's how you protect him with 6. Yeah, starting him 75% in the offensive zone. And it was scoring chances were 7-3 for Toronto when he was on the ice. High danger chances 5-1 when he was on the ice. So only gave up 1 high danger chance with a 56% expected goals. So that's fine. That's if you can get that out of John Klingberg on a third pair role, you're going to be happy with those numbers. And obviously didn't get scored on either, which is always a plus. All right. When we come back, there was also another rumor going around this weekend, and it's kind of intensifying with Elliot Friedman's report on 32 Thoughts. And it's revolving a defenseman that Toronto could be interested in. So we'll tell you about that on the other side. But first, I want to tell you guys about one of today's show sponsors, and it is our friends at Sleeper. A new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Matthews could score 50 goals. The Leafs could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you can win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network. Sleeper is our #1 choice for daily fantasy sports, and especially daily fantasy hockey. Because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Nylander, Matthews, Marner, Ovechkin, Crosby, maybe, whether or not they'll record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus minus, and more in any given game. To win a 100 times your bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8 player stats. You heard me, Leaf fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and locational availability. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano with Dave Morassutti. Interesting storyline coming out of that Calgary game as well, as it was Dan Milstein, the agent of Nikita Zadorov, essentially right after the game against Toronto, coming out.
It was actually kind of during the game that he put out the first note, but it was raised right after the game.
Yeah, basically saying Zadorov wants out. He's requesting a trade and he wants out. And it sounds like a preferred destination could potentially be Toronto, Dave.
Yeah, it's interesting how the timing of that all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Just so convenient.
It's like,
There were
Nikita, don't get on the bird. Just stick
well, and I think Ellie Friedman said on 32 Thoughts that there were some Leafs players that were kind of in a way, not tampering way, we're trying to recruit Zadorov to come to Toronto. But here's two things about that. One, Zadorov doesn't have trade protection, so he doesn't really get much of a say, or he doesn't get any say in the matter. The Calgary Flames are not going to do him any favors. And the Leafs have some competition. Two other teams. You got the Vancouver Canucks, who are funny enough playing in Ottawa that night. So people and people were like, and they're coming to Toronto. So people were like, the dog could just stay there and just say, which one of you two guys wants to trade for me, and I'll just hop into your locker room when it's time. And the other thing too is New Jersey's, I think, apparently also interested from what we saw. Both Toronto and Vancouver have the same problem in that they got to make the money work.
Yep.
And that's why I'm not expecting a deal like this to come down anytime soon. Like they gotta make the money move around, and Calgary's gonna have to figure out what they prefer: draft picks or a mix of prospects and draft picks.
Yeah, so the money there, he's making $3.75 million. He's a pending unrestricted free agent. I suppose there's a way in which they could maybe try and get a team to keep 50% of that contract and maybe get creative with a double retention. And that's a way you could try and make the money work a little bit more. And that's a possibility. Or you try and send back, one of Toronto's contracts, right? Like John Klingberg is a name that a lot of people wouldn't mind seeing leave Toronto. Like potentially you could throw him into a deal and see what happens there. I mean, I doubt Ryan Reeves would be in that conversation, but that's a guy making a lot of money. But outside of that, like I don't think they trade TJ Brody. I don't think that's for Zadorov at least. I think they want to do something else there. So yeah, the money is going to be interesting to see how and if Toronto's able to pull that off. But hey, Brandon Pridham's a cap wizard, man. That guy knows how to work a cap. And if there's one guy who could figure it out, I think it'd be him. But we'll see what happens there. But it is interesting. You did note that there was some reports that apparently one of the Toronto Maple Leafs leaned over to Zadorov and was like, "Hey, pal, we need someone like you here." And they do. Like ultimately, you saw the hit that he laid on it was on Bertuzzi. Like absolutely rocked him. Imagine if he does that in a Leafs uniform in Scotiabank Arena, the place would erupt. Erupt.
Even the suits will
could use
get up.
Zadorov. Apparently, they may want Zadorov and Tanev though, which I would be totally game for. Like Tanev's would be a solid. That again though, it comes down to money. How do you make that work? Because I think Tanev's making $4 million himself, so you're bringing in almost $8 million in cap space. You got to figure out a way to make that work. But it's look, Tree Living knows these
Are we
guys.
turning into the Toronto Maple Flames here? Like,
well, I mean,
Brody, Giordano, Tan. Like, we're just gonna have a reunion party over here with Tree Living too. It's just
Kadri back. Want to bring Kadri back while we're at it?
Well, I mean, he's got Leafs ties at least, but yeah,
I know. But yeah, I know. Oh, we'll see what happens. It was an interesting name. It was an interesting situation there with Dan Milstein tweeting out like, mid game or directly after, basically, Nikita wants out. Let's let the bidding begin. But Toronto expected to be very, very much in the mix there. All right, buddy. Good show, good stuff. It'll be a long week for us. There's no games until the weekend. The Leafs are off to Sweden in the next day or so, and they don't play again until Friday. I think they have Detroit. I want to say these are weird. Like They had the game.
Detroit on Friday, and then it's Minnesota at 8 a.m. on a Sunday.
8 a.m. puck drop on Sunday. So make sure that you remember that one. 8 a.m. hockey from Stockholm, Sweden. Imagine how good Willie's going to be in Sweden in front of his home
loves
crowd.
playing in Europe, so he's probably chomping at the bit right now.
Yeah, like he's looked great, but he's going to look like Connor McDavid out there. Maybe it's going to be awesome. I'm excited for it. So we'll kind of tee things up throughout the week. We'll try and get some guests lined up throughout the week as well to kind of help talk about what's happening with the Leafs, with the NHL, because no games to react to, but we still got content to go through because it's Leafland and there's never a dull moment in Leafland. That'll do it for us here today on the show, though. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the podcast. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms, including up on YouTube. And you'll receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on X at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti, and follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs. Go ahead, leave a like if you enjoyed this video on YouTube. Leave a comment down below your thoughts on the Leafs weekend performance. And we'll be back with another episode for you guys tomorrow. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.